Black and Gold Nation, listen up. What happened today in Pittsburgh isn't just another roster move. It's a clear sign that something still beats inside this team. Adam Thielen, at 35 years old, walked into his first Steelers practice looking like anything but a veteran nearing the end. Loose, energized, almost relieved to finally be somewhere he believes he can truly matter. And that's what you need to understand right away. This wasn't some random late-season pickup. Thielen chose Pittsburgh because he believes this group still has something worth fighting for. Wearing his new number 16, he stepped onto the indoor field and instantly drew attention from teammates, from coaches, and even from Aaron Rodgers, who didn't bother hiding how he felt. Rodgers told the media that Thielen has more left than people think, and that the veteran told him this is the best his body has felt in years after barely seeing the field in Minnesota. If that's true, then the Steelers didn't just add another depth piece. They might have found exactly what this offense has been begging for since the start of the season. And before we dive into all the details of this massive arrival, smash that like button if you're black and gold through and through. And yet, the excitement around Thielen comes with a dose of reality. This offense is notoriously difficult to learn, especially for receivers. The playbook is thick, the verbiage is dense, the checks are layered, and Rodgers has full freedom at the line to adjust multiple plays at once. We watched Roman Wilson struggle with the system as a rookie. We saw Mike Williams come in mid-season last year and battle the same issue. It's not a plug-and-play environment. It takes real time, real reps, real mental work. But here's the thing. Thielen is the type of receiver who thrives on detail. He's not a burner, he's not a jump ball monster, he's a route technician who wins with timing and intelligence. So the question isn't whether Thielen fits. The question is how fast he can get up to speed, and everything we heard today suggests he's approaching this challenge with urgency. And based on how the coaches view him, once he understands the offense, he's not just going to play, he's going to start. He'll step in immediately as the number 2 option opposite DK Metcalf, pushing Calvin Austin III into a smaller role and limiting the chances for MVS, who hasn't shown enough in practice to force his way into the rotation. And honestly, that's the heart of this move. Pittsburgh didn't want another speed guy. They didn't need another deep threat. They needed a reliable, physical, veteran route runner who can break open at the intermediate levels, win possession downs, and give Rodgers someone he trusts when the pocket collapses or the timing breaks. The Steelers chased Jakobi Meyers at the trade deadline because they knew this wide receiver room lacked that profile. In a way, Thielen becomes the Jakobi Meyers at home version, maybe not the premium model, but still exactly the type of receiver this system desperately requires. And in a season where the offense has struggled to sustain drives, it's hard not to see this as a calculated, intentional attempt to stabilize things right now, not later. But while Thielen's arrival brings optimism, the team's situation isn't suddenly rosy. The run defense is once again dealing with the same nightmare that haunted them in the Jets, Seahawks, and Bills matchups. Derek Harmon being out again is brutal timing with Derrick Henry waiting across the line in Baltimore. Every time Harmon has missed a game, the Steelers have been gashed. 182 yards, 117 yards, 249 yards. 3 games, 3 100-yard rushers, and a defense that has looked nothing like itself in the trenches. It's not scheme. It's not personnel around him. Harmon is simply the anchor, the one piece that keeps the interior glued together, and without him the entire structure bends. Facing Henry in a divisional matchup without your best run-stopping force is a recipe for anxiety, and players know it. Coaches know it. Fans know it. That vulnerability hangs over this week like a storm cloud. And that tension, the losing streak, the inconsistency, the frustrations boiling over in Buffalo, pulled Mike Tomlin into the spotlight. When Tomlin talked yesterday, it was the first time in weeks he addressed both the players' emotional outbursts and the fans' anger head-on. He admitted frustration was a real factor in the loss, that guys cared deeply but didn't channel that emotion the right way. He didn't shove accountability onto the players. He didn't minimize what happened. He owned it. He reminded everyone that part of being a tough team is refusing to beat yourself, and that composure matters as much as execution. But what hit hardest was when he talked about the fans. No excuses, no deflection. He said he agrees with the frustration. He knows losing is not entertaining. He knows this city expects better. And whether you love Tomlin or believe the franchise needs a fresh start after the season, you can't deny that he understands the business he's in. Still, accountability doesn't fix play calling. It doesn't fix the offensive sluggishness. It doesn't fix the rotations at tight end, where Pat Freiermuth continues to see fewer snaps than Jonnu Smith even though Smith has offered less production, less efficiency, and less impact in every statistical category. Every season Pittsburgh brings in one of these veteran solutions, and every season the experiment falls flat. Allen Robinson, Van Jefferson, now Jonnu Smith. and once again, a reliable homegrown piece is being overshadowed because of it. Fans aren't imagining the issue. It's real. All of this sets the stage for one massive question hanging over the weekend: the frustrations, the locker room energy, the new addition of Thielen, the defensive problems, the pressure on Rodgers and Tomlin. Do Steelers fans believe this move, in this moment, can spark a real turnaround? What do you think about Adam Thielen's arrival and what it means for the Steelers right now? Thielen's arrival feels less like a bandage and more like a statement from the front office that they're not willing to watch this season slip away quietly. And as the days roll forward toward Baltimore, you can sense a shift inside the locker room, not confidence exactly, but urgency. Rodgers bringing the entire offense to his home on his own birthday told you everything you need to know. You don't invite receivers, tight ends, and running backs to watch film and break down a troubled offense on a night meant for celebration unless you're desperate to right the ship. Ben Skoranek showing up with a decorated cake didn't change the tone. The tone was simple: this offense is not meeting expectations, and Rodgers isn't waiting on the coaching staff to fix it. He's taking ownership, and whether you agree with his demeanor or not, that level of urgency was missing in recent weeks. And maybe that's why voices like Ben Roethlisberger's are starting to re-emerge in interesting ways. When he suggested the team should unhook the helmet and let Aaron do his thing, it was more than nostalgia. He hinted at something a lot of fans and analysts have quietly wondered: is the offense too restricted, too rigid, too scripted? Last week's brief stretch of success came when Rodgers started calling his own plays. It wasn't a long sample size, but it was a noticeable one. And when a Hall of Fame quarterback is dealing with a wrist injury that limits snaps under center, spreading the field and letting him diagnose defenses might simply be the best path forward. Pittsburgh has run the ball better out of spread formations anyway, especially between the tackles where Jaylen Warren and Kenny Gainwell can knife into the extra space. It may not be the identity they envisioned when the season began, but at 6-6, identity no longer matters. Survival does. And survival is exactly what this defense is fighting for as well. Without Derek Harmon, this unit doesn't just take a step back, they collapse in the run game, and that collapse spreads. It affects the pass rush, keeps the secondary on the field too long, and forces Rodgers and the offense into shorter possessions with less margin for error. That is the reality facing them heading into a hostile Baltimore environment. Last season the Steelers struggled mightily against Derrick Henry, and nothing about this matchup becomes easier without Harmon's weight and leverage inside. TJ Watt dealing with a toe issue complicates things even further, even though he's expected to play. When one of the best edge rushers on the planet can't anchor and explode off his plant foot the same way, every snap becomes a grind, especially against a Ravens front that loves to run power football directly at your weak spots. And while the defense tries to hold the line, all eyes shift to the secondary, specifically the new corner, Asante Samuel Jr. He was thrown into action last week after James Pierre's concussion, and though Buffalo didn't test him much, he showed burst, confidence, and control. This week, the test becomes something entirely different. Baltimore will move Zay Flowers everywhere, and the Steelers are expected to play heavy man coverage. Joey Porter Jr. likely takes DeAndre Hopkins, leaving Samuel with the shifty, sudden Flowers. That is a tough ask for any player making his first start of the season, let alone one stepping into a must-win AFC North battle. But the locker room has been buzzing about Samuel's readiness, and if he holds his own, this secondary could look surprisingly stable even with Darius Slay out of the picture and headed to Buffalo. And that opens the door for one more name, rookie Dante Kent. Nobody has seen him since August, and suddenly his 21-day window is open. If Pierre can't go, Kent could suit up for the first time and give this cornerback room the depth it desperately needs. It's not ideal to throw a rookie into a Ravens matchup after months off the field, but this is the NFL. Opportunities don't wait for the perfect moment. The weight of all this, injuries, expectations, frustrations, Thielen joining the fold, falls squarely onto Mike Tomlin. And for the first time in a long time, fans didn't just boo the performance last week. They booed the direction. They chanted for changes. They questioned the leadership. And Tomlin heard it. He didn't hide from it. He didn't deny it. He said he agreed with the frustration because winning is the business. Entertainment is winning, and the Steelers haven't delivered enough of it. You can criticize his schemes, his coaching decisions, his rotations, especially when he insists Jonnu Smith continues playing over Pat Freiermuth, but you cannot say Tomlin is oblivious to what's happening. He knows the seat is warm, and he's coaching like a man who understands exactly how thin the margin has become. Now the Steelers sit at 6-6, staring at a stretch of 5 games that will write the story of the season. Thielen's arrival isn't a miracle cure, but but it is a spark. Rodgers taking full command isn't a guarantee of success, but it is a shift in leadership. The defense getting healthier isn't a solution to everything, but it is a step toward stability. And somewhere inside all of this chaos is a team that has led in every game this season, yet never managed to build an identity stronger than the adversity that hit them. They know it. Tomlin said it himself. The identity is 6-6, and he doesn't like it. So now it comes down to this stretch, to Baltimore, to whether this team can finally respond instead of crumble. Do you believe this new mix, Thielen, Rodgers taking more control, the defense trying to survive injuries, will be enough to push the Steelers into a real late-season surge? And this is where the story of the season shifts from frustration to possibility, because for all the flaws, all the collapses, all the inconsistencies, there is still a very real path for the Steelers to dig themselves out. And that path begins with the offense finally finding rhythm, identity, and trust, three things it has lacked since week 1. That's why Adam Thielen's arrival matters more than fans might realize. He's not here to be a savior or a superstar. He's here to give Aaron Rodgers something he hasn't consistently had this year, a receiver who understands spacing, leverage, timing, sight adjustments, and the small, detailed nuances of high-level quarterback play. Thielen doesn't guess, he reacts. He doesn't freelance, he executes. And when defenses show disguised coverages, when routes need to be adjusted on the fly, Rodgers needs someone who sees the field the same way he does. That is the missing ingredient that, at times, has made this offense feel disconnected. DK Metcalf brings size and dominance, Roman Wilson brings speed and explosiveness, Calvin Austin brings quickness and big play energy, but none of them bring the veteran precision Rodgers has built his career around. Thielen does. And when he finally learns the playbook well enough to start, whether that's this week or next, his presence could genuinely reshape third downs, red zone sequences, and late-game drives. For an offense that has repeatedly stalled in critical moments, that is no small thing. But the offense isn't the only side searching for answers. Defensively, the Steelers know the numbers without Derek Harmon are unacceptable. They know the Ravens will test that weakness instantly, repeatedly, relentlessly. They know if they allow Derrick Henry to build momentum, the game tilts out of their control. And they know that if TJ Watt is limited by that toe injury, even slightly, Baltimore will run straight at him, force him to anchor, and challenge the edge over and over again. That's why players like Keanu Benton, Larry Ogunjobi, and even rotational guys like Isaiah Loudermilk must step into a bigger role. There's no hiding the problem. There's only surviving it. And then you look at the secondary, Asante Samuel Jr. stepping into the spotlight, Joey Porter Jr. taking the physical battle with DeAndre Hopkins, the possible debut of Dante Kent, and suddenly you realize this isn't just another regular season game. This is a measuring stick, a moment where young players either rise under pressure or reveal where the team still needs help. Samuel versus Zay Flowers might end up being one of the defining battles of this entire matchup, especially with Baltimore's tendency to isolate their quickest receiver against corners who struggle in space. If Samuel proves he can win that matchup, or even hold his own, that unlocks flexibility the Steelers desperately need. And this all circles back to leadership, not the rah-rah type, not the post-game soundbite type, the real kind. The kind that Rodgers tried to show by hosting that film session, the kind that Tomlin showed by not ducking criticism, the kind that players like Cameron Hayward, Minkah Fitzpatrick, and what have shown throughout their careers. That's why this team hasn't fractured, even with frustration boiling over in Buffalo, even with players snapping on the sideline, even with fans demanding change. They're frustrated, not broken. They're angry, not indifferent. And that emotional investment still matters, even when execution hasn't reflected it. These final games will decide whether that investment turns into something meaningful or becomes just another what if in a season full of almosts. The division is still within reach. A 9-8 finish could still win the AFC North. Momentum can swing fast in this league, faster than most fans realize. But none of that happens unless the Steelers finally choose a direction and commit to it. Thielen joining the roster gives Rodgers a target who can make the offense more structured. Rodgers taking more control gives the offense a clearer voice. The defense fighting through injuries gives the team a chance to stabilize long enough for the offense to rise. The pieces are there. The opportunity is there. The pressure is definitely there. And now the only thing left is execution. So as we move toward the most important stretch of the season, I want to know, do you believe this team has one more surge left in them? them? Do you see a late-season rally forming, or do you think the problems run too deep for Adam Thielen and a few adjustments to fix? Let me know what you think in the comments, and if you're still with me here, make sure you're subscribed, hit that like button, and check out the other Steelers videos on screen now. Here we go, Steelers. And even after laying all of that out, there's still one more layer to this moment that Steelers fans can feel but can't always put into words. It's the sense that this season is sitting on a knife's edge. One direction leads to another year of inconsistency, missed chances, and a roster that never quite synced the way it was built to. The other direction leads to something different, not a guarantee, not a miracle run, but a stretch where this team finally begins to reflect the talent that's on it. That tension is everywhere right now. You can feel it in the way Rodgers speaks after games, controlled but noticeably sharper. You can see it in Mike Tomlin's posture at the podium, shoulders tight, voice steady, but the weight of the season sitting heavy behind every word. You can hear it in the locker room when players talk about caring too much, pushing too hard, letting frustration show instead of composure. And that is why a moment like this, a pivot point, can be so revealing. The best teams aren't the ones that avoid adversity, they're the ones that choose how to respond to it. And up to this point, the Steelers haven't responded well enough. This stretch, though, this final push, gives them no choice. The Ravens don't care about frustration. The playoff picture doesn't care about potential. The AFC North has already exposed every weakness this roster has, and now it's on Pittsburgh to show whether the lessons were learned or simply absorbed, whether the mental toughness returns or the inconsistency wins again, whether the locker room stays aligned or fractures under the pressure. And that's exactly why adding a veteran like Adam Thielen right now feels like a piece of intentional timing. The Steelers don't need star power. They don't need flash. They need stability. They need someone who plays with discipline when the moment gets chaotic. They need someone who brings calm when the temperature of the huddle starts to rise. And they need someone who understands that the margin between winning and losing in this league often comes down to 3 or 4 plays where experience matters more than age. If Thielen becomes that piece, even in a limited role, it could be the subtle shift that helps the offense settle into something reliable. If Rodgers continues taking ownership of the structure, it could give the unit a real identity. If the defense can patch itself together long enough to weather these injuries, it could hold the line until reinforcements return. None of this guarantees a turnaround, but it creates the possibility of one. And right now, that possibility might be the most valuable thing this team has. Because in a season defined by almosts, by leads surrendered, by opportunities drifting away, the next 5 games are no longer about style points or comfort. They're about resolve. They're about whether the Steelers still have it in them to push back instead of fade. They're about whether all the frustration, the criticism, the tension, and the pressure finally ignite something instead of suffocate it. So as we head into this stretch, with Baltimore looming and the season's direction hanging in the balance, I'll leave you with this. Do you think this locker room, with everything it has endured, still has the fight to turn this thing around? And as we push this story forward one last time, you can feel how close this team is to crossing that invisible line between collapse and resurgence. Every year, every season, there's a moment when you can tell whether a team is about to rise or about to fold. It's rarely dramatic. It's rarely obvious. It usually comes disguised as something small, a veteran signing, a players-only meeting, a quarterback taking more control, a coach admitting frustration instead of dodging it. And right now, the Steelers are